I thought I knew them. I thought I could trust them. But the night I opened that door, my world ended. My husband, my sister, the two people I loved most. Do you know what it feels like to have your entire reality ripped away in a single moment? To watch your whole life, your family, your trust, shatter into pieces? This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about pain, revenge, and the strength you don't know you have until it's your only choice. Because when my husband cheated on me with my sister, I didn't just cry. I made them regret it. I used to think my life was perfect. Not just good, not just happy, perfect. I had a husband who adored me. At least that's what I believed. He was charming, thoughtful, the kind of man who never forgot to say good morning or sleep well. And every time he wrapped his arms around me, I felt safe, like nothing in this world could touch us. And then there was my sister, my best friend, my other half. We shared everything: clothes, secrets, childhood memories. She was the one I called when I was sad, the one who always knew how to make me laugh when life felt heavy. If there was anyone I trusted blindly, it was her. The two people I loved most in this world, my husband, my sister. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was. But at that time, I thought my world was unshakable. I thought love was solid, family was forever, and betrayal was something that only happened in other people's lives. Our house felt alive with love. Sunday mornings were my favorite. Me in the kitchen making pancakes, my husband sneaking up behind me to kiss my neck, my sister dropping by to drink coffee and gossip at the table. We were a picture of closeness. I actually remember thinking, this is what happiness looks like. But happiness has a cruel way of hiding cracks beneath the surface. The first one was small, so small I brushed it off. I remember picking up my husband's phone one day to check the time, and a message flashed across the screen. "Thanks for today. I needed that." My stomach tightened. But when I asked him about it, he laughed it off, said it was just a coworker who was stressed out. And I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. Another time, my sister came over unannounced. She did that a lot, and I never minded. She brought takeout, we ate together, and she stayed late. Even though my husband had work the next morning, I thought it was sweet, the way she felt so comfortable in my home, the way she loved spending time with us. But then there were the moments that didn't feel so sweet. The way they laughed at inside jokes I didn't understand. The way her hand lingered on his arm just a second too long. The way he looked at her sometimes, quickly, then looked away when he noticed me watching. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself love makes people family, and family could never betray you. I forced the doubts out of my head. Because how could my husband, the man who promised me forever, and my sister, the girl I shared my entire life with, ever do something to hurt me? Still, every so often, the thought crept in, a quiet whisper at the back of my mind. What if? What if those glances meant something? What if that message wasn't from a coworker? What if the people I trusted most were hiding something from me? But I silenced the voice. I had to, because the truth was too painful to even imagine. If I had listened to it then, maybe I would have seen it sooner. Maybe I would have stopped what was coming. But I didn't. I chose to live in the illusion of my perfect life, not knowing that every laugh, every dinner, every warm hug was already poisoned. And the betrayal that would shatter me forever was already creeping closer, waiting for the moment I least expected. It started with little things, the kind of things you don't notice until they pile up and suffocate you. My husband used to come home at 6 sharp. I'd hear his keys at the door, the sound of his shoes on the hardwood floor, and his tired but happy smile greeting me in the kitchen. But suddenly, he was late. Not once, not twice, but almost every night. "Work's been crazy," he said, loosening his tie, as if that explained everything. "The company's pushing a new project. I'm exhausted." And I nodded, pretending to understand. Because that's what a good wife does, right? She trusts, she supports, she doesn't nag. But trust doesn't quiet the pit in your stomach. And that pit only grew deeper when my sister started calling him more than me. At first it seemed innocent. "Can you help me fix my laptop?" she asked one evening while I was making dinner. He gladly took her call, walking into the other room, laughing as he explained something to her. The next day, it was her car. The day after that, advice about a bill. I shrugged it off, telling myself she trusts him like a brother. That's all. But why was she calling him instead of me? Why didn't she just ask me for help? And then came the nights she showed up at my house without warning. One evening, I opened the door to see her holding bags of Chinese takeout. "Surprise," she said, with that familiar smile. "I thought we could all eat together." She stayed late that night, too late, past midnight. My husband was yawning, clearly tired, but she kept talking, laughing, sipping wine like it was her second home. And maybe that was when I noticed it. The way he leaned forward when she spoke, the way her eyes lit up when he laughed, the electricity between them that had no business being there. I shook the thought out of my head so fast I almost felt dizzy. No, that was crazy. She was my sister. He was my husband. They were my family. But then came the kitchen moment, the one that still makes my chest tighten when I think about it. I walked in and saw them huddled close, laughing at something on his phone. Her hand was on his arm, just resting there, casually, like it belonged. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. "What's so funny?" I asked, trying to sound casual. They both jumped, literally jumped. His thumb quickly locked the phone. Her smile faltered. "Oh, nothing," he said too quickly. "Just a meme. You wouldn't get it." I forced a laugh. "Try me." But he just slipped the phone into his pocket, changing the subject, offering to open another bottle of wine. And I went along with it, smiling, laughing, pretending nothing was wrong. But inside, I felt sick. Because deep down, I knew. Still, I tried to silence that voice in my head. I told myself I was paranoid. I told myself I was being dramatic. I told myself love doesn't betray you. Family doesn't betray you. But the signs kept coming. Like the time I reached for his phone and he snatched it away like it was on fire. "Work emails," he muttered, avoiding my eyes. Or the time my sister slipped up, saying something only he should have known, something I had told him in confidence. When I asked her how she knew, she stuttered, laughed nervously, and brushed it off. The pieces didn't fit. The puzzle looked ugly, but I still didn't want to see the picture forming in front of me. Because to admit it, to truly admit it, meant accepting that my entire life was about to collapse. So I kept pretending. I kept hoping. But late at night, when the house was silent and I was alone in bed, the questions haunted me. Am I losing him? Am I losing her? Am I losing both? And though I didn't want to believe it, the truth was already waiting for me, waiting for the day I would finally open the wrong door at the wrong time and see the nightmare I could never unsee. At first, I told myself I was just tired, that maybe my imagination was playing tricks on me. But deep down, something inside me was stirring, something uneasy, something that refused to let me rest. Michael had always been a man of routine. He left for work at 8 a.m. sharp and came home by 6, with the smell of his favorite cologne still lingering on his shirt and a smile that made my world feel safe. But slowly things began to change. "Late again?" I asked one evening, watching the clock strike past 10. I had set the table hours ago, and the food had gone cold. The door creaked open, and there he was, his tie loosened, his hair messy. "Sorry, Em. Big project at the office. You know how demanding my boss can be." I nodded, trying to mask the knot tightening in my stomach. I wanted to believe him. After all, hadn't he always been the man who promised me forever? But his smile felt different, rehearsed, like he had practiced it on the way home. And then there was my sister, Clara. Growing up, she had been my shadow. We shared secrets, dreams, and late-night giggles under the covers when we were supposed to be asleep. She was my safe place, my other half. But lately her presence felt different. One afternoon, I stopped by her apartment unannounced. I expected her usual warm welcome, but instead she opened the door with a startled expression, clutching her phone tightly. What a surprise," she said, forcing a smile. I noticed the phone screen light up with a name she quickly hid. Her hands trembled just slightly, and her laugh was too sharp, too quick. "Oh, I was just on a work call." Something about the way she avoided my eyes made my chest tighten. And then there were the times I caught her slipping away quietly. Once past midnight, I woke to the sound of footsteps outside my house. Peeking through the curtains, I saw Clara walking briskly down the driveway, her coat pulled tightly around her. My heart pounded. Why would she come over so late without telling me? The next morning, I confronted her gently. "Clara, were you at the house last night? I thought I saw you." She froze, then let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, yes, I stopped by. I had those books you wanted, and I didn't want to wake you, so I just left them at the door." Her words made sense, but her eyes, those eyes I knew so well, were hiding something. And Michael, his behavior only made the unease worse. He started guarding his phone like it held state secrets. A buzz would light up the screen, and he'd snatch it up instantly, turning away from me. "Who's texting this late?" I asked once, half joking. He didn't laugh. "Just work stuff," he muttered, slipping the phone into his pocket. Work stuff, always work stuff. But when he rolled over at night, pretending to sleep, I could feel the tension in his body. He wasn't resting. He was hiding. I started questioning myself. Was I being paranoid? Was my marriage fine and I was just imagining shadows where there were none? But the more I tried to silence my doubts, the louder they screamed. Every time Michael's eyes lingered a second too long on Clara, every time Clara flinched when I mentioned him, my world tilted a little more. I remember one particular Sunday dinner. We were all at my mother's house, me, Michael, and Clara. I caught a moment, just a fraction of a second, where Michael passed the salt to Clara. Their fingers brushed. It was so quick, so small, that no one else would have noticed. But I did. Clara's cheeks flushed, and Michael cleared his throat too forcefully before looking anywhere but me. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I excused myself to the bathroom, locking the door behind me, and stared at my reflection in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes wide with a truth I didn't want to face. Was it possible? No, she's my sister. He's my husband. They wouldn't. They couldn't. But the cracks were spreading, and the life I thought was unshakable suddenly felt like fragile glass under my feet. And I knew with a sinking dread that something was about to break. And I knew, with a sinking dread, that something was about to break. It happened on a night that seemed so ordinary, so painfully normal, that I almost laugh now at how blind I was walking into it.
Michael had told me he'd be late, again. "Just a few hours," he said, pressing a quick kiss to my forehead before disappearing out the door. Clara, too, had texted earlier saying she wasn't feeling well and would be staying home that night. So I decided I'd spend the evening alone. Wine, a book, maybe an early night. But around 9 o'clock, something in me shifted. A strange instinct pulled at me. My chest felt tight, my mind restless. It was the kind of unease you can't explain, the kind that whispers, "Go. Now." I grabbed my keys and drove. Not to Michael's office, not to Clara's apartment. My hands seemed to move on their own, guided by something deeper, darker. Fear, suspicion, maybe fate. Before I even realized it, I was pulling up to a quiet street, the street where Clara lived. Her lights were on. I sat in the car for a moment, my fingers gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. "Don't be ridiculous," I whispered to myself. "You're overthinking. You'll knock on the door, she'll be alone, and you'll laugh at yourself for ever doubting." But when I climbed the stairs and reached her door, laughter was the last thing I heard. Voices. Muffled. A lone murmur, followed by a sound that made my blood freeze. A soft laugh, intimate, playful, the kind of laugh a woman gives when she's not just comfortable, but cherished. My heart slammed in my chest as I pressed my ear closer. "Michael." It was Clara's voice, sweet, breathless, my sister's voice. The air left my lungs. I didn't think. I couldn't. My hand turned the knob. To my shock, it wasn't locked. The door swung open, and the world I thought I knew shattered in an instant. There they were. Michael's shirt half unbuttoned, his tie discarded on the floor, Clara wrapped in a blanket, her hair messy, her cheeks flushed, their bodies too close, their eyes wide like deer caught in headlights. For a moment, none of us moved. I stood frozen in the doorway, my fingers gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. "Emily?" Michael started, his voice breaking. How could you?" The words tumbled out of me, sharp and jagged, slicing the silence like glass. "Both of you?" Clara pulled the blanket tighter around herself, her lips trembling. It's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like?" I laughed, but it wasn't really laughter. It was a hollow, broken sound that echoed off the walls. "Then tell me, Clara. Tell me what I'm looking at right now. Tell me why my husband is in your bed." Tears burned my eyes, blurring the sight of them together, but I refused to let them fall. Michael stepped forward, his hand outstretched as if he could pull me back into his lie. "Emily, please. It just happened. I didn't mean—" "Didn't mean?" My voice cracked, fury and heartbreak colliding in my chest. "You didn't mean to betray me? To lie to me? To destroy our marriage? You didn't mean to crawl into bed with my sister?" Clara sobbed, covering her face with her hands. "I'm sorry, Em. I'm so sorry." "Sorry?" I whispered. My throat was dry, my voice hoarse. "You were supposed to be my best friend, my sister, the one person I could trust with anything. And you—" My voice broke completely. "You took the one thing I knew I loved most." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Michael tried again, desperation seeping into his tone. "We didn't want to hurt you. We didn't plan this. It just happened." Those words stabbed deeper than anything else. It just happened. As though my marriage, my life, my trust, all of it was some careless accident. I shook my head slowly, backing away toward the door. My chest heaved, my vision blurred. "No." I said more to myself than to them. "No, this isn't real. This can't be real." But it was. The image of them together burned into my mind, carved into me like a wound that would never heal. In that moment, I realized the life I thought I had, the perfect marriage, the unbreakable bond with my sister, was nothing but a cruel illusion. I stumbled out of the apartment, the night air slapping me across the face, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. My body shook violently, every step heavy, like I was dragging the corpse of my old life behind me. That was the night everything ended. That was the night my world fell apart. The days after that night were a blur. I don't remember how I drove home. I don't remember if I cried the whole way or if I was too numb to even breathe. What I do remember is collapsing on the living room floor, my body curling into itself as though I could protect my heart from breaking any further. But the truth is, the breaking had only just begun. Sleep deserted me. At night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment over and over. The sight of Michael's shirt on the floor, the sound of Clara's laugh, the look in their eyes when they saw me standing there. Every detail carved itself into my mind like a cruel tattoo I couldn't erase. And in the silence of those nights, questions consumed me. Was I not enough? Was I blind this whole time? Did either of them ever truly love me, or was it all a lie from the start? I'd look at old photos of me and Clara, two little girls in matching dresses, giggling in the backyard, whispering secrets under the covers. My sister, my best friend, my other half. I remember how she used to protect me from bullies, how she held me when I had my first heartbreak, and now, she was the one who broke me in ways no stranger ever could. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined.
Michael had broken vows, but Clara? Clara had broken blood. I couldn't eat. I couldn't focus. At work, people asked if I was okay, and I'd paste on a smile, hiding the storm inside me. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Every time I heard Michael's voice on my voicemail, begging me to talk, I felt the weight of his lies pressing down on me. And then came the humiliation. The whispers started. Neighbors, friends, family who had caught glimpses of the truth before I ever did. I realized I was the last to know, the fool everyone pitied. Poor Emily, I could hear them say, even if their lips never formed the words. Her husband and her sister? Can you imagine? The shame was unbearable. I avoided calls, ignored texts, shut the curtains, and drowned in my own silence. But in that silence, something began to shift. At first, it was just anger. A fire burning beneath the grief, small but fierce. I'd hear Michael's excuses in my head. It just happened, Emily. And my jaw would clench. I'd see Clara's tear-streaked face, hear her whisper, "I'm sorry," and my chest would tighten with rage. Sorry? What did sorry fix? What did sorry erase? Sorry didn't give me back the trust they'd stolen. Sorry didn't stitch together the heart they'd shattered. I realized slowly that if I stayed in that pain, if I let it consume me completely, I would never escape. I would drown in their betrayal while they moved on with their lives. And that thought, that was the spark. One night, after crying until my throat burned, I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes hollow. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. "Enough," I whispered. It was the first time I had spoken out loud in days. Enough. I wasn't going to let them win. I wasn't going to let them define me as the weak, broken woman they thought I was. Yes, I was hurt. Yes, I was shattered. But inside the wreckage, I felt something else stirring. Something sharp. Something dangerous. I didn't know it then, but that was the night I began to plan. Not revenge. Not healing. Not yet. Revenge. I would bide my time. I would let them believe they had broken me beyond repair. But deep down, I was already stitching together a new version of myself, one fueled not by love or trust, but by the fire of betrayal. And when the time was right, they would see. They both would see. Revenge doesn't happen overnight. It brews. It simmers. It grows quietly in the shadows, waiting for the moment when the knife can twist the deepest. I didn't rush. That was my strength. Michael and Clara thought I was broken, lost, drowning in my pain, and I let them believe it. I kept my distance, ignored Michael's desperate messages, avoided Clara's pleading calls. But behind closed doors, I was planning. Step by step, piece by piece. The first thing I did was gather proof. It wasn't hard. Michael was careless. Passwords he never changed, messages he thought he deleted but didn't. I found months of texts, photos, hotel bookings. Each discovery felt like being stabbed all over again. But I forced myself to endure it. Pain was my fuel. Then there was Clara. She wasn't any better at hiding her trail. Receipts in her purse, emails left open on her laptop when she thought I wasn't looking. The evidence stacked higher and higher until I had a mountain of betrayal at my fingertips. But what good was evidence without the perfect stage to reveal it? That's when the idea came. My parents' anniversary party was coming up, a big family gathering with relatives, friends, neighbors, everyone who mattered. Michael and Clara were both invited. Of course, they'd come. They always loved pretending everything was normal. I knew that night would be the stage. For weeks, I prepared. I smiled when people asked how I was. I dressed up, went out, pretended to be healing. I even answered Michael's calls occasionally, letting him believe I was softening, forgiving. All the while, I held the truth close to my chest, waiting for the perfect strike. And then the night came. The house was glowing with laughter and music. My parents were radiant, surrounded by love. Michael was there, standing beside me as though he still had the right. Clara was there too, floating around the room, pretending nothing had happened. Seeing them both sickened me, but I smiled, because I knew what was about to happen. When the speeches began, I stepped forward. My hands shook slightly, but not from fear, from the sheer force of what I was about to unleash. "Good evening," I said, my voice calm, steady. "Tonight, we're here to celebrate love, a love that has endured through thick and thin. My parents have shown us what true devotion looks like." I glanced at Michael, then at Clara. Their smiles faltered, just a little. But not all love stories are built on honesty. Some are built on lies, on betrayal. A murmur rippled through the room. My mother frowned, confused. My father shifted uncomfortably. Michael's eyes widened, his body tensing. Clara's face drained of color. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the projector, and pressed play. Message after message flashed across the screen. Michael's words to Clara, Clara's replies. Photos of them together in hotel rooms, receipts, emails, proof that left no room for denial. Gasps filled the room. My mother covered her mouth in horror. My father's face hardened with rage. Family members turned to stare, whispering furiously. And Michael reached for me, his face pale. "Emily, stop this. Please, let's not do this here." I yanked my arm away. My voice cut like a blade. "Why not, Michael? Why not here, in front of everyone who believed we were happy, in front of everyone who thought Clara was my loving sister? Why not let the truth out once and for all?" Clara sobbed, sinking into a chair. "Emily, I never meant..." "Never meant?" My voice rose, trembling with both fury and liberation. "You meant every second of it. Every touch, every lie, every time you smiled in my face while stabbing me in the back. Both of you." The room was silent, except for the sound of Clara's crying and Michael's frantic pleas. "You thought you could break me," I said, my voice cold, steady. "But all you did was set me free." And then I walked away. I didn't stay to hear their excuses, their shame, their desperate attempts to salvage what was left. I left the projector playing, the evidence screaming louder than any words could. As I stepped outside into the night air, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Relief. Not because the pain was gone, it wasn't, but because the power had shifted. I wasn't the victim anymore. I wasn't the fool in the dark. I was the one who ripped the mask off their faces and showed the world who they really were. And in that moment, with the cool night breeze against my skin, I tasted justice. Sweet, sharp, liberating. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming myself. And I had. When I walked out of that party, I knew there was no going back. I didn't need to hear their apologies anymore. I didn't need to sift through their excuses or wonder why or torture myself with questions that would never have good answers. The truth was out. Everyone knew. And that truth, as painful as it was, had freed me. The days that followed were still heavy. Don't let me lie to you. It wasn't like flipping a switch where the pain just disappeared. No, I still woke up some nights, heart pounding, remembering the way Clara laughed in Michael's arms. I still caught myself staring at the ring on my finger, wondering how something that once symbolized forever could now feel like nothing more than a cruel joke. But little by little, I began to reclaim myself. I started small. Morning walks, cooking for one, journaling my thoughts instead of letting them eat me alive. And with every step, I realized something powerful. I was still here. They hadn't destroyed me. I had survived betrayal from the two people I trusted most, and yet I was still breathing, still standing. Michael tried calling, of course. He sent flowers, letters, begging me to talk, to let him explain. Clara, too. Messages filled with apologies, words dripping with regret. I didn't reply. Not once. Because what was there left to say? They had made their choices, and now I was making mine. For the first time in a long time, I chose me. I started focusing on the woman I had neglected while trying to hold up a broken marriage. I enrolled in classes, picked up hobbies I had long abandoned, reconnected with friends I had pushed aside. I laughed again. Not the polite, practiced laugh I used to mask my pain, but a real laugh, a free laugh. And with every genuine smile, every deep breath of peace, I felt a weight lifting. It struck me one evening, as I watched the sunset from my balcony, how strange life can be. Sometimes the very people you die for are the ones who kill you inside. Sometimes the ones you love the most are the ones who teach you the hardest lessons. Michael and Clara had broken me, but they had also given me a gift. They had forced me to see my own strength. They had pushed me to find a version of myself that wasn't defined by a man's love or a sister's loyalty. And that realization, it was more powerful than any revenge could ever be. So, if you're listening to my story and wondering how someone moves on after being shattered, let me tell you this. You don't forget. You don't erase the pain, but you learn to carry it differently. You learn to let it shape you, not destroy you. Because betrayal may break your heart, but it can also open your eyes. And my eyes, they are wide open now. I see my worth, I see my strength, and I see a future that belongs to me and only me. So here's the moral I've come to live by, the lesson I hope you carry with you too. Sometimes the deepest betrayals are the very things that set us free. Sometimes losing the people we thought we couldn't live without is the only way to discover we never needed them at all. And that, my friends, is not the end of my story. If you've stayed with me through this story, maybe it's because you felt something similar. Maybe not the exact same betrayal, but that sting of being let down by someone you trusted with your whole heart. Let me tell you this. What they did to me was cruel, yes. It broke me into pieces I thought I'd never put back together. But the thing about being broken is that you get to decide how you rebuild yourself. I chose to rebuild stronger. And if you're listening to this, sitting with your own pain, wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, believe me, you will. The hurt will fade. The shame will pass, and one day you'll look in the mirror and see someone you never thought you could be. Stronger, wiser, and unshakably free. Because in the end, betrayal doesn't define us. Survival does. And survival is the sweetest revenge of all.